Hi, thank you for your question. So usually in these videos, even though like I'm pretty uncut and raw and everything, I do sometimes like leave some things out or maybe gloss over different areas just to kind of, I don't know, not like stir the pot. I do worry like, my story is so confusing as it is. Like if I go into more details, it's going to be more confusing. Not only that, but I know that there's people out there that use content like mine for nefarious purposes. But here is honestly my whole journey to coming to the realization that I'm a trans man. So this is me as a little girl, and honestly, I had no voice in my head that was like, oh my god, I was meant to be born a boy. And a lot of people are like me and don't have stories like that, but that is the most common theme we see. I deadass was like dissociated half of the time, like I was full of anger. I will be getting graphic just to warn anybody, so if you can't handle it, don't watch this video. At just 6 years old. So to put that in, like, perspective, I have a 10-year-old. So when I was 4 years younger than my son, I was put into therapy because I wanted to unalive myself. 6 years old. And all my life, that's just been, like, part of my story. Like, my family, like, brings it up from time to time because it was a very scary time for them. I remember my dad, I remember him stopping his pickup truck and refusing to drive because I kept saying, that I wanted to, and he was so hurt and crying and like, please stop saying that, and I just wouldn't stop saying it. But now that I have a kid who's a 10-year-old, it's like, I would be shocked if my kid even knew what that meant. Like, I wouldn't even, it's just, wow. But I did have that much pain. I remember the pain inside me being so distinct that, like, it was physically painful. I was so angry at God and my parents for making me be born because I was so uncomfortable. I couldn't put it into words. I couldn't, even decipher to myself what I was feeling, never mind explain it to anyone else. But I will say one thing. At this age, younger than this, because I believe I was like 8 years old in this photo, I knew as young as like probably 6 or 7 that I liked girls. But I knew that liking girls was not right because my family is religious, even though they've always like tried their best to be accepting of me. I mean, I obviously knew that being gay was frowned upon. And my family can vouch for me that I did know that I liked girls at such a young age because I used to feel like I had to confess. So this is me in middle school. I honestly think I look pretty much the same. Like slap on a king tattoo and like twinsies. So fast forward to middle school, you know what I mean? I knew that I liked girls. My friends, family knew I did from a very young age. But I also liked dudes. So, throughout middle school, high school, I dated guys, I dated girls. But at 16, I came out as a lesbian. I didn't just come out as a lesbian though. I completely started presenting masculine. I shaved my head. I dressed in all men's clothes. In public, a lot of the time, I was mistaken for a dude, and it felt really good. I was so confused because it felt so good, like, presenting this way. I felt so good in my skin, presenting as a masculine lesbian, but there was one issue. I didn't just like girls, so there's no way I was a lesbian. I ended up transitioning back, presenting, feminine. A lot of it had to do with, I've struggled a lot with religion over the years. I didn't feel comfortable presenting feminine. I mean, hold on. I literally changed what I look like constantly just trying to, like, feel okay presenting feminine. And this is just like a quarter of it, honestly. But these are all pictures of me. But I kept trying my best to just find a way to present as a woman and feel good. And this is gonna sound crazy, but this was my thought process. I literally convinced myself that no woman actually likes being with cis men. They just do it because, like, it's like a marital chore or like the chore in a relationship. It's what they're supposed to do. I convinced myself of that for so long. And honestly, it didn't help that, like, pretty much all the women I asked were like, yeah, no, that's pretty much what it's like. During this time, I even became pregnant with my son. And I was able to, just try very hard until my son was probably 2.5 or 3. Now, at that point, what ended up happening is, like, I was constantly dramatically changing what I looked like, as a woman. I had actually met my first trans person back, like, when I was 16 or 17 when I first came out. So that's what let me know that, like, it's possible to transition, but, like, it's not something I thought of super seriously, especially when it comes to a medical transition, until I was probably, I'd say 25. 26 is when I started my medical transition. The way I came to this realization, I mean, I had been still trying to date people after I left my son's father. I was still, dating men, trying to find somebody that I could settle down with, and I just, obviously, not just intimately, but really in every facet, I was never happy, never comfortable. So I was like, maybe this just isn't working for me. Maybe I should just try dating women again. And when I was dating women at any time, I was always a touch-me-not. A touch-me-not lesbian is just like, obviously a lesbian that doesn't want to be touched in any way, intimately anyways. And during this time, I actually had a friend whose son started transitioning to male. And I also had another friend who was transitioning to male. And I started seeing firsthand, that transitioning was accessible. It was actually, that could be a reality for me one day. To me, it was wild. Oh my God, there's a way that I can, present as a man in public, pass as a man, but not be confined to being referred to as a lesbian. And I don't mean offense to that, but I'm not a lesbian. And that sort of, just kind of, checked the boxes for me that were always unchecked because I didn't know what the fuck was going on. But I still tried to hold out. I really did because, I have a son, and I was nervous about how it would impact him. Plot twist, kids don't give a shit. Like I always say, as long as you're reliable, compassionate, empathetic, safe, they don't care. But I was nervous. The moment, or I should say one of the moments, I consider it a marking moment, when I realized, okay, it's time to take that step forward. Well, I went out with, women. Like I said, I was dating women at the time. And this one woman, she knew I was a touch-me-not lesbian and stuff. She didn't mean any offense, by it or anything. She was trying to compliment me, but she tried to compliment me about my chest. I was so angry, I wanted to curb stomp her. I didn't, obviously. But I was enraged. My dysphoria was that bad that she wasn't trying. I mean, arguably that wasn't the best thing to say to somebody who isn't comfortable with those types of remarks. But, it's not she didn't have ill intent, I don't believe. So for me to have such a big reaction, even if I didn't physically react, but I did mentally, I was like, okay, something just needs to be done about this. That's not okay. That was a big reaction to a pretty mundane thing. Another thing is I was so concerned, what my son's, teachers and therapists would think of me. Meanwhile, I was constantly changing how I looked as a woman, so it's what's the difference? Why not just transition? I mean, coming in to get him from school looking like a completely different woman every day, I think that arguably might look a little bit more sus than just transitioning. So that's when I started looking into, accessing hormones. And, after I was on them for a long time, I had surgery. Accessing hormones for me was not, super easy. I have bipolar, so I had to wait for clearance because they were afraid that testosterone would, incite a manic episode. So it was really hard, having to wait and stuff. But ultimately, I'm glad I did. Kind of. But honestly, for years and years, I cannot tell you how long, I really thought that something was so fucked up with me because I felt like I was a masculine lesbian who still wanted to do dudes once in a while. I'm like, this just doesn't make sense. And there'll be a lot of people that'll be like, oh, but you can be a woman and be a tomboy. My favorite thing about that, oh my God, not you. But you will get these women, right? They'll have long, luxurious hair being leggings, but they'll have a baseball tee and a baseball cap on and be like, I'm so glad my mom let me be a tomboy. Look at me. There's a big difference.